Two guys either side of 50 with one dream to achieve middle-aged sporting glory. This is the Missing Links Golf Show. Ladies and gentlemen, here we are for episode 8, or as I would prefer to call it, the Missing Links Masters Part 2. I'm Steve Hinks, and I'm joined tonight by that man who stands on the precipice of history, Andy Walker. Mr. Walker, welcome to the show.
Good evening, Mr. Hinks. How are you?
I am so well. Actually, it's not 100% true. I think we do need to kick off with a little apology to all of our listeners who would have undoubtedly been sitting there waiting, champing at the bit for this episode to come out late last week. But of course, we did have to postpone by a couple of days due to a nasty virus, which sneaked up on me on Wednesday night. So
yeah, and I must admit, when I did get your message to say let's postpone the episode, I was like, yeah, I'm not feeling 100% either. So I think it must have been something in the air at Mudgee.
I think you might be right. Beautiful place. We loved Mudgee, and we'll talk a lot more about that this evening. But look, a few things I think that we need to cover off on. And as we like to do, start off with a little bit of listener feedback.
Absolutely.
And anyone that is involved in the Missing Links Golf Show Facebook page would already know this, but due to listener feedback, we've got a new logo, Andy Walker.
We do.
This is very exciting. I'm a huge fan of it. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, love it. Love it. As you know, we've had a bit of a discussion about it, and a few sort of changes from sort of first draft to what eventually was published. And yeah, I really like it. I think it's a really good logo.
Yeah. So, well, look, we like it. That's what counts. If anyone else has got any feedback, please let us know. Hopefully it's positive, because that was about version 7, I think, that we got up to before we landed with something that we're happy with. But,
yeah, we had a few, but look, I do think it encapsulates what we're trying to achieve. That we've got obviously the links that are missing, which was, my great explanation in episode 1, I think it was.
Some of your best.
But the question mark, I mean, the red question mark, I mean, that's what it is. It's answering those questions and putting those, trying to come up with those answers.
Well, is it answering the questions, or is it asking the questions? See, I don't know.
Well,
I don't know
that I think we've got to answer them at some point.
Well, you'd hope so.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that we have. Anyway, we have more questions this evening, but I also do have answers. So that's almost a really good segue, Andy Walker, because you may recall, I think it was 2 episodes ago now. I think it was in the beginning of the Who is Sandy Wedge episode, which was episode 6, when we were trying to understand what the common greetings were in the United States, so that we could more accurately talk to our ever-growing listenership in the US.
Yeah. So was it, how you doing? Is that what we ended up with?
I've done a little bit of a virtual tour of the US.
Yep.
And I have come up with some common greetings. So I just want to run these by you.
Excellent.
Andy Walker.
Right.
And there's a few ways we can do this. I can either, because I've gone by state. I haven't gone all 52. I haven't gone all of the states, but I've got a selection. Maybe we'll look into some of the other states in future episodes. But a few ways we can do this. I can just tell you what they are, or we could play a game. I could give you the name of the state, and you could try and guess what the greeting is, or I could give you the greeting and you could try and guess what the state is.
I reckon if you give me the greeting, I'd have more of a chance, because if you named a state and tried to get me to have a guess as to what the greeting is, I reckon I would have no chance.
Yeah, you're probably right. I still think you've got no chance, but this could be fun. So we're going to kick off. Okay, we're going to kick off. I'll give you a tip on this one. You'll probably guess, and I apologize for the dodgy accent that might slide in here as I do this. But I did this research on an irrefutable source. It's known as YouTube, so excellent. I'm sure it's 100% accurate. Disclaimers,
no doubt.
At the ready.
No doubt.
So anyway, I'll give you a tip. This is in the southern half of the US,
right?
And it's, I think, it's relevant to golf. Anyway, the greeting is, "Hey y'all."
See, is that like New Orleans?
It's not, but and that's also a city rather than a state. But
Is it?
yeah, nitpicking. Yeah,
Uh,
it is. Yeah,
okay. Yeah.
it's embarrassing.
Alabama?
No, it's
Texas?
close. It's close. Georgia. It's Georgia.
Georgia. Ah,
Georgia.
right. Masters.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. So very relevant.
The one.
This one's a tricky one, and I do have a state written down here, but there is actually many states that are covered by this one, so you might
Okay.
accidentally get it right. Hello. It's legit.
Um, I don't know, California. It's got to be one, surely.
I
We've
don't
got to say
reckon.
hello. Yeah.
I don't reckon it'd be California, but Nevada is the one that I've got.
Nevada.
Apparently, they say hello. Very, very
Right.
polite people in
Mm.
Nevada. I don't know. You know how in New South Wales we're called New South Welshmen. I'm not sure in Nevada if they're Nevadians or I don't know. Maybe that's another one to research for the next episode.
Mm.
Here we go. This one you might get. Howdy, y'all.
It's got to be New York up around what state's New York in? Is it New Jersey?
Um, no, I think New Jersey's south of New York because
Yeah.
you got New York
Might,
State, which is up north, and then you got New
yeah,
York City. New York City might actually be its own state.
maybe. Yeah. My geography with cities and states in the US isn't that good,
It doesn't seem
surprisingly.
so. Doesn't seem
Mm.
so. Anyway, howdy y'all. Actually needs more of an exclamation mark, I think, on that one. Texas, Andy Walker. That's Texas, the Lone Star State.
I was just about to say Texas.
Yeah, I thought you were. And now there's another which covers a lot of like quite a few states. I've got on the list here uh, two states actually for this, but it might be more. And it is what's up?
Really?
Yeah.
Is
What's
that
up?
California?
Oh, I thought it would have been, but apparently it's Missouri and Illinois.
Wow. Okay.
So to all our Missouri and Illinois fans, what's up?
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know where this is going. And then the last one, because I feel like we're going into way too much detail here, is just a good old fashioned hug. Apparently, that is the official greeting in a number of states. And
Right.
without you trying to guess, because that's going to be hard, but that is Iowa, West
California.
Virginia,
It's got
and
to be
Arkansas. They just hug it
right.
out. Yeah,
Yeah.
strangers
So
not
no words,
strangers.
just straight in
No,
there.
no, no, straight in hug, big hug. Now, I might add, this might not be 100% correct because I have taken it from YouTube. But anyway, that there were some really legitimate looking individuals on the YouTube video explaining that that's what they do. So
Okay.
there you go. Are you a
Gotta love
hugger,
you.
Andy
Got,
Walker?
gotta love YouTube. I'm a bit of a hugger, to be honest
Yeah.
with you.
Okay.
I don't
I
mind a
think
hug.
I think Iowa, West Virginia, or Arkansas put it on your list.
Mm,
Yeah.
have to.
Okay. Interesting. Or is it? That I suppose is another question. Anyhow, moving on. What I would like to do, I think we need before we get into this episode, which is talking about the Missing Links Masters and the results. I
Yep.
think we need to recap where we were at the end of the last episode because there were some heated words got
There
thrown
were.
around.
There were. We
Yeah,
were
Sandy
quite
Wedge.
unhappy, I think, with the reviews that Sandy Wedge had given, and I think we came to the conclusion that there's some level of, I don't know, he's just intimidated in some way by our success.
Yeah, I mean, this was certainly my takeaway, and it was interesting when you mentioned that. I hadn't considered it, but I think you're right. He always considered himself to be the golf broadcaster.
Mm,
And I think now he realizes that he's got a challenge on his hands. But
yeah.
he sent me a message after that episode, and he said, and I quote, unequivocally, I am not intimidated by either of you. In
Right.
fact, in fact, he goes on to say, I have never been intimidated by anybody, least of all the two of you, not only because of your lack of ability on the course, but also because of your lack of ability behind the microphones.
Wow.
And I would appreciate it if you stop casting these many aspersions at my integrity and actually take the feedback on the chin and learn from it. Love, Sandy.
Love Sandy.
Love, Sandy. Yeah. So
Wow.
he's trying to finish
Okay.
it nicely.
Hmm.
but he wasn't
Yeah,
happy.
yeah. Look, and I still stand by what we said. I think words, actions speak louder than words, and he can just come back and say whatever he wants. But at the end of the day, he's put it out there that you know we were going to finish sixth and seventh, and we'll see in as the episode comes along where we actually finish. But I think that was pretty harsh, and I certainly think that was an intentional action to try and big note himself.
Oh, look, I don't doubt that at all. Um, I don't think this is a spoiler alert, but it's fair to say that he was wrong because neither of us finished seventh because
No,
no one
given there
did.
was only six in the field, it's
Yeah, and
difficult to
this
finish seventh.
and even though there were six in the field, this is interesting. We'll explain why in the back end of the episode, but also nobody finished sixth.
Mm, correct.
So, so yeah, so I think we'll come back to Sandy's predictions come the end of the episode. But I think you know what, it's time. Let's get into it. Let's have a look at what happened in Mudgee.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
it,
Well,
it
I mean,
was
it was a wet weekend, and I think we mentioned that during episode 7 that it was looking to be quite a wet weekend, and I that did come about on the Saturday. We got quite wet as we went around the golf course.
see the thing is, we got there a day early, and the plan was to have a practice round on Friday afternoon.
Mm,
My game was all geared towards having a
tapering.
practice round and being able to groove in some more elements of the weight shift swing change.
Mm.
Obviously, that couldn't happen because of the rain on the Friday afternoon. And I'm not looking for any excuses for the overall performance without giving too much away. But I mean, I really think that had a huge bearing on things. And I think if we'd gotten out for that practice round on the Friday afternoon, things could have been incredibly different over the course of the weekend.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, look, I'm not in total agreement with that. It would have been good to get out for a practice round on the Friday, but at the end of the day, we didn't. I mean, I hadn't seen the course before, so I wanted to go out and see the course. And look, at the end of the day, I'm not going to make any excuses for my performance over the weekend. So yeah, I
I
just
sincerely hope you don't.
I don't think anyone should be making excuses just because it was a little bit wet underfoot and we didn't get out on the Friday.
No, it made all the difference. All the difference. So anyway, let's get into it. So we arrived on the Friday. We didn't have a practice round. I
We
think we've
didn't.
established that. We did have a podcast though, so that was exciting.
We did.
And we went out for dinner, which was
Mm.
which was pretty good. So to the
We
smokehouse there
lubricated quite
in
well.
yeah, we got out and had a very, very protein focused meal on the
It
Friday
was,
night.
it was very protein
Um,
focused.
yeah, so I'm not sure if that actually, if Dave McClelland would have supported that
Mm.
as a strategy, but regardless, it happened and it was very, very good.
It
A lot
was.
of fun. Um, got up on Saturday, found it very difficult to track down a bacon and egg roll. I have to
We
admit,
did.
but we got there eventually.
Yeah, like what the third was that third or
Yeah,
fourth venue we went to?
yeah, it was at least the third. But
Yeah.
Elton's came through, so good on you, Elton. Shout out to
Mm.
you. Great bacon and egg roll.
It
That
was.
set us up for success. Got to the course. The course was open. Carts were allowed. Amazing. Kudos to the ground staff at Mudgee for
Yeah.
actually keeping that track in pretty good nick.
I mean, given
We
how wet it was and how much
oh,
rain we got, it was
amazing.
actually quite remarkable that the course was actually open at all, let alone having carts on it.
I know. Cut the carts element. I could not believe. And you and I like to walk the course, but for the likes of Mickey Belafonte, I think that was a massive bonus.
Yeah,
Didn't
huge
necessarily
advantage.
play out on the scorecard, but we'll get to that. So anyhow, we teed off early. We teed off about probably 40 minutes earlier
Mm.
than our initial tee time.
Yeah, of course, there was no one else out in the golf
There
course
was no one
pretty
else.
much.
There was no one else around, and I think what we actually did in retrospect is rather than getting out early to beat the rain, we made sure we got out early in the rain
Yeah,
because it
yeah.
was tumbling down for the first few holes. So anyway, first tee box for the Masters. This is always a time which is quite nerve wracking. We were in Group 2. We saw Group 1 tee off first in the wet. I don't think I'm being unkind, Andy Walker, when I say it was relatively uninspiring from Group 1 off the tee.
Mm. Yeah, look, I would be in agreement with that. Yeah, there wasn't a lot to show.
No, wasn't very straight, wasn't very far.
Mm.
But if your aim was to keep it in the trees and keep out of the rain, then I think they really did quite well. So then our turn off the tee. And Andy Walker, I'm interested in your reflections on your opening tee shot for the Masters as
Look,
defending
I mean,
champion.
yeah, look, I mean, I was pretty nervous on the first tee, obviously, with the defense of my championship up for grabs. And, first hole, a bit of a dog leg to the right. It was important to get away quite well down the fairway. So I decided to take my three driving iron off the tee just to play it nicely down the middle of the fairway. Usually have, maybe 120, 125 in from there on that length of hole. And yeah, I snap hooked it straight into the bundi on the left.
Yeah, it was
It was
quality.
a great start.
It was, and you were so happy about it as well, which is what I enjoyed.
Mm.
I really did. Mr. Mannix, the third player in our group, I think from memory, followed you in there, which
Yeah, he was
was,
a little bit further down the
yeah,
tree line than myself, but yeah,
yeah,
certainly
yeah,
was in the tree line. But
yeah.
what was really
Whereas,
good about it was that I was up against, well, almost up against a tree, of
mm,
which I had to stand back, and get the ball sort of at the front of my stance, and went down the grip of a three wood and let rip with a three wood, and no one saw it where it went.
that's true. That is true. And so you had to hit
Which
a provisional.
I had did a provisional. But
Yes.
fortunately, and I did say to you that the provisional, which we saw where it went, I said that felt exactly the same as what the first shot did. And coincidentally, the first ball was almost right next to the second ball, which I was much relieved to find
Yeah,
that first ball, so
that
I
was a
didn't have to
bonus.
continue playing the provisional.
That was a bonus. I don't know if you ever did this when you were a kid, but like when say you lost a marble or you lost a tennis ball or something in the backyard and had no idea where it was. So you ping one over the shoulder and you go for find the second or find the first. It was a bit like that, I think. So anyway,
That's it. That
fortunately,
is exactly how it felt.
yeah, fortunately you found the first. I, on the other hand, just decided to take the four hybrid off the tee. Bunted one about 195 up the middle, little 9-9 onto the green, two putt par.
Mm.
Pretty unremarkable, safe, boring start to the Masters. But you don't always finish as you start. Golf
No,
36
no,
hole
you don't.
tournaments
You
is
definitely
a
don't.
long way. So look, we got off the first, and then I personally felt things were going okay for the first three or four holes.
Mm.
Hadn't necessarily hit the best shots, but things hadn't gone wrong. Still racking up 2 pointers and the odd 3 pointer here and there. So things
Well,
things were pretty
considering you hadn't
positive.
played the day before, I mean, I think it was a pretty solid start.
Yes, that's right. Thank you for acknowledging that. And then we got to our first par five, so opportunity
Mm.
hole on the
Yeah.
fifth. So yeah, so stand up on the fifth tee, OB up the right. But like hole kind of angled slightly in towards the course and a little bit of a dog leg to the right up towards the green, over a creek and up quite a steep hill on the other side. Um, I I feel like I absolutely middled the drive. Uh, and I think what the pros on the PGA tour would say is I overdrew it. Um, I
That's
think
one
that's
way
the
to put it.
terminal. I think that's the
Mm.
terminology. Overdrew
Mm.
it, not a hook by any stretch,
No.
but just overdrew it. We weren't quite sure where it ended up, so hit a provisional, or did I? Because that probably rolled about 30 meters up to the red tees.
Mm. Fortunately, it wasn't your first shot. It was well, you were playing
Yeah,
three with a provisional.
yeah. It wasn't great. So anyway, look, we'll cut a long story short. Unfortunately, the overdraw really was an overdraw, and we didn't find the ball, so we assume it went out of bounds. I ended up taking a quadruple bogey on that hole, Andy Walker, as you can
Mm.
remember,
Yeah, that was
and
tough.
and and that kind of really was a bit of a dagger at that point. But anyway, these things happen. So we got to the turn, and on the turn, Do you remember how many points you're on the turn, Andy
I mean,
Walker?
I was 18, so
You're at
I
18.
played reasonably solidly on that first 9 holes. I felt as I didn't do anything spectacular, as I think as you mentioned with your par on the first, it was quite unremarkable.
Mm.
So it was a
Solid golf,
solid
though.
18 points.
Solid golf. Solid
Mm,
golf. There were some good shots in there. There was some good putting because aim point was at the
mm.
four.
Yeah, yeah, and that's certainly a big positive that I took out of the weekend was how Aim Point performed. I felt very confident, certainly over the line of the putt, and I felt as though I had the speed of the greens quite well. I mean, Mudgee's the sort of golf course that suits my game quite well. Having grown up on a country course,
Mm.
it's a very good country golf course, and you think sort of country golf course, and Mudgee pretty much fits in that box.
Oh, I think it does. It rates itself the best course west of the Blue Mountains. I saw that sign at the clubhouse as we drove in. Big call.
It's a good golf course. Is it the best west of the Blue Mountains?
And in what
I don't know.
range? Like, west of the Blue Mountains, that actually also covers, well, pretty
Western
much
Australia.
all of Western Australia, all of South Australia. It's pretty good golf courses in those places.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Big call from Mudgee.
Mm,
Not
mm.
sure if there's any evidence with which to back that up, but yeah,
No.
it's a good course.
Look, it's a very enjoyable golf course.
It is. It is. So yeah, so at this point, you're on 18, Mr. Mannix on 17, I'm on 15 at the turn. So
Yep.
you're holding a slender lead. We don't know what's happening in group one.
No, we didn't see those guys
We didn't
after
see
pretty
them.
much after they hit their second on the first hole. It was okay. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah. It was fast. They were
Mm,
playing the Mark Webber style golf. Um, in with Mickey Belafonte and Nee, who's always a fast player anyway, but
yeah.
Mickey with the
And
cart,
and
Nee.
in carts in a three ball, they
Yep.
motored
They,
quite
they, they
literally.
got around.
Mm,
We did well. I suppose we had a little bit of looking for golf balls here and there as well, which didn't
yeah.
really help. So anyway, at the on the second nine, look a bit more solid golf going along. Uh, Mr. Mannix dropped away a little. I think
He did.
it's fair to say
Mm.
on the second nine. I
I
battled
actually
my
thought he
way.
he he was going to have a good day because he was playing quite solidly up until sort of halfway through that second nine.
Yeah, and it just kind of petered off, unfortunately. I felt I was playing some solid holes again, just really didn't make the most of the par fives.
Mm,
Had a couple of doubles on the par fives that really hurt. But then happily on the 18th, nice drive up the middle. I think it was a 9 iron to the green, just missed the green left into some casual water. GUR got a drop out of that, which was fortunate. And then pulled out the Texas wedge straight in for birdie, Andy Walker.
mm. That was a
It
great
was
shot. And it never looked like going anywhere else but in the hole.
it was a nice way to finish, which gave me 30 points at the end of the round. But you continued some good play through the back nine and hit a good drive down 18, but just threw the dog leg into the trees a little,
Mm,
playing off some hard pan dirt. Hit
yep.
a cracking, what was it, wedge or
Eight.
9 iron?
No, it was an eight iron.
8 iron under the
Yep.
branches, through the gaps to about, I would say, 2.5 feet from the hole.
Oh, it was wasn't that close.
Pretty close.
Maybe a meter because we go in meters and centimeters here in Australia.
Yeah, not when we're putting, we don't. Look, it was very, very close to the circle of friendship.
Mm,
And from there, it was interesting to see you go on and make a solid par.
yeah, it was probably my worst putt of the two
Wasn't your
days. I
best.
have to admit, I knew where I needed to hit it, and I didn't hit it there. And
No,
surprisingly, it missed. I don't even know if it hit the hole.
it didn't. It didn't
Mm,
hit the hole.
mm.
Yeah. I think you were put off by the Texas wedge, if I
You
can
think?
be, yeah, I do. Which obviously, as it came off the club, just went, howdy, y'all, straight in the hole.
Yeah, look, I don't recall consciously thinking about it, but maybe at a deep subconscious level, I could have been.
Yeah, I just don't think he could have written the script any differently.
Mm.
Nevertheless, you finished the day co-leader on 35 points.
35 points. Yep. Yeah, which I was pretty happy
Um,
with at the end of the day. I mean, it was past 71, so I played off five. So
mm.
77 off the stick. I was pretty happy to post a score in the 70s. I have said if there's a 70 in front of my score off the stick, that I'm reasonably happy
For 18 holes.
for 18 holes.
Yes.
Definitely for 18 holes.
Just clarify that.
Mm,
Um, no, it was a solid round of golf. So so you were on 35 points. So at the end of day one, the tail of the tape was this. Um, AW equal leader with Hef on 35 points. Now, those of
mm,
you who listened to the previous episode will know Sandy Wedge was actually making some pretty strong statements
yeah.
about Mr. Heffernan,
Mm,
who was playing on the day off a handicap of 31. Sandy had noted that Hef's handicap had been trending outwards for some time,
yep.
and had raised questions. Questions, I think it's fair to say. He made no outright statements, but
No.
had raised questions about Hef's management of his handicap coming into this event. So to see him atop the leaderboard, I think I'd be interested to climb into Sandy's mind at that point and go, here's a person that he's identified as potential sandbagger. Sandy's words, not mine, alongside Andy Walker, who he had really torn apart with his,
Mm.
what were the words? It was something like his newfound obsession with,
Like I say, aim point wizardry
yes,
and
and yeah, newfangled
yeah,
gizmos, all these, yeah, strong words.
yeah, very strong.
But to see the two of you atop the leaderboard, I just wonder how he would have felt about that. And also to see Mickey
Mm.
Belafonte, who he had rated as the most likely to win at the end of day one, Mickey sitting comfortably sixth with only 22 points.
Yep.
I mean, they were a fast 22 points.
They were.
Um, so congratulations to Mickey on speed of play. Possibly an equal focus on accuracy and quality of play would be something just to think about and take away for future rounds.
Mm.
Speed's
See, the
wonderful.
other thing that Sandy brought up was that I had avoided playing competition rounds
Well, I
leading
mean,
up to the
that's
Masters.
true though. That he didn't make that up.
No, no, didn't make he didn't make that up at all. I mean, I did
Yeah,
have that 2.8 that was hanging there in my 20th round, which yeah, we did drop off after that
we
first
did,
first event, even though we did keep the handicaps over the weekend.
we did, and I don't think it would have changed anything because you changed by 0.3. You went from 4.4 to 4.7. I still think you
Yep.
would have played off five.
Mm.
Regardless. So anyway, that's where it stood. So the overall was AW and Hef on 35, myself on 30, followed by Mr. Mannix on 29, Mr. Trandin on 28, Mickey Belafonte on 22, which meant that in the first group out the following day, it was Mickey, Mr. Trandin, and Mr. Mannix to tee off, which
Mm.
they did. Again, relatively uninspiring, I feel, off the tee. Pretty much all up the right tree line, but that's okay. And then it was our turn on the tee box, and I'd like to dwell a little bit on the first tee box on day two because, well, before we get there, worth noting another great meal the night before at the Italian restaurant in Mudgee, which was good. It's good preparation. But it was a beautiful day, day two. The
It
rain
was.
had cleared, the sun was out, the
Mm.
humidity was up,
Yeah.
and it was hot and it was sultry.
Mm. Yeah, look,
It,
and I think we were quite lucky given the weather forecast for rain both days to get up on the Sunday morning and be faced with what was a pretty good golfing day. I think we were pretty lucky.
we were definitely lucky, and we were standing on the tee box at the beginning of round two. Obviously, yourself and Hef leading. Myself 5 shots adrift. I knew there was a mountain to climb for me to come back over the top of the two of you, and either I had to play blindingly brilliant golf, or the both of you needed to come back to the field. So
I
at
mean
that
that
point,
was Sandy's prediction that I wouldn't be able to deal with the pressure.
yeah, so I really had my eye on Hef at this point, which was why on the first tee I thought it was a really important question that I asked him what his swing thoughts for the day would
Mm.
be, and what kind of things he was actually working on with his technique.
Mm.
Um,
Well, he did mention that he has a tendency to come over the top. And I think he also had mentioned that he'd watched, I think it was a number of YouTube videos on how to stop himself from coming over the
Yeah.
top. And then I think you proceeded to give him a couple of swing tips.
Yeah, I thought it was important just to make sure that any of the possible strategies to avoid the coming over the top were fresh in his mind as he
Mm,
lined his first tee shot up.
yep,
I was helping. I was
of course you
definitely
were.
trying to just help a golfer become a better golfer.
Mm.
That's why we're here on this
A,
show.
a fellow golfer,
Yeah,
a golfer helping a fellow golfer. That's what it's all about.
that's exactly what it's all about, and that's where I thought, like, if I only gave him possibly one strategy to overcome and to think about overcoming his over the top move, then that probably wasn't going to be enough because it might have taken two, three, four, or maybe five strategies. So, we had to work on hand path, shoulder rotation, hip rotation, footwork, stance, all of those things just to give him the best chance of success. Uh, you know, did that give him too much to think about? I don't know. That was
I
never
don't
my
know.
intention.
Look, at the end of the day, and as I'm sure that we'll talk about it, I think given the amount of swing thoughts he was provided at the start of the day, I think he performed remarkably well.
Look, he did, and we will get to this. To be fair as well, I feel like in his opening monologue, there were already plenty of swing thoughts that were going on. So I don't really think that I had too much of an
Well,
impact there.
given the number of YouTube videos, I think he
Yeah,
mentioned that he'd watched in the lead up to the Masters to try and get himself out of swinging over the top. Yeah, I
yeah,
think there was a few too many swing thoughts in there.
yeah. So Hef, if you're listening, okay, turn the laptop off, go and book a lesson with your local PGA pro and get some professional advice,
Well,
because
it
the
is
guys on the
interesting
internet,
because yeah, in the last episode we did talk about me having my first coaching session with Joe Bannerman at Cumberland, and over the weekend I completely put out what we talked about completely out of my mind and went, you know what, I'm not going to even think about those sorts of swing thoughts, and I'm just going to go back and play by feel and just how I would normally go out and play. It's just yeah, it was way too
it's the
dangerous
only
to
way.
start thinking about any of that.
It's the only way. It's the only way. And look, let's be honest. On day one, that worked really well. So moving on to day two. So we tee off on day two, and at this point, yeah, yourself and Hef got a 5 shot lead. Um, and I'd like to think over the first couple of holes, I was coming at you. I think I
Hmm.
pulled two back on the first two holes and thought, well, this is a chance. Um, Without trying to maintain the suspense any longer than necessary, it faded away pretty quickly after that, and that was all she wrote. But you opened up, I think, a 4 shot lead early
Yeah,
on over
yeah.
Hef.
After six, and this was, and I must admit, I was a little bit concerned because my snap hook was quite prevalent in the first few holes on three, four, and five. Actually,
Yes.
no, sorry, three, five, and six. I took driver and just hit snap hook, snap hook,
Yeah,
snap
three in
hook.
particular was impressive.
Yeah, yeah. So I was a little bit concerned that it was rearing its ugly head. But on six, after the snap hook, I did get down there, and quite remarkably, I had a clear shot to the flag. And six it's a fairly long par four, and I do get a shot on. I got a shot on six, and I don't know. I could just see the shot that I wanted to hit. I grabbed out my 7 iron and just smoked it into about 10 foot and hold the putt for a three or four, which
Mm,
then, yeah, opened up a 4 shot lead. And I was pretty feeling pretty confident at that stage
mm.
after 6 holes.
Look, I think you had every right to. What you didn't probably factor in was the damage that can be done when you get double shots on a
Correct.
hole,
Mm,
when you're playing off 31 and you
mm.
get 2 shots on 13 of the 18 holes.
Yes. Yes.
When playing off five, you get no shots on
Mm,
13 of
yeah.
the 18 holes. And
Mm,
look, I think it's fair to say that started to have an impact.
mm. Yeah, look, and I think my confidence was probably a little bit premature.
Mm,
because even though I don't feel as though I did a lot wrong on 6, 7, and 8, in fact, I had 2 points on each hole. I found myself after 9 holes being back tied for the lead
yep.
after
Yep.
4 pointer, 3 pointer, 3 pointer by Hef. And yeah, he was coming back quite strongly. And I must admit, standing on the 10th tee, I was going, hmm, this is going to be interesting over the back nine to see how this plays out.
It was. I could see two things going through your mind, and I'm sure there were many more, but um, having the privilege of front row seats into the final nine, I could see one, the steely determination of I'm not being beaten by a 31 handicapper today. I know that was there. And the other thing that I could see going on was, how am I going to beat a 31 handicapper today? I think that were the two competing thoughts that
Look,
were going through your head.
at the end of the day, and I've played enough golf now to realize that a 31 handicap is going to be up and down the whole round. So I knew at some point in time,
Mm.
those 4 pointers and 3 pointers were going to disappear, and there were going to be probably a couple of wipes thrown in there as well.
Nice segue. So we moved through the early holes of the final nine, and it was a little bit, back and forth, thrust and parry.
Mm.
You got to, I think it was a two shot lead after 15 from
Yeah,
memory.
I actually think it was so after because on the 13th, the par five, the long par
Mm.
five down the fence line at the back of the course there, which I also got a shot on. And this was another one of my little snap hook
It was
drives.
a
But
good
then I
snappy. Yeah.
yeah, but then I snap hooked my 3 iron back out into the fairway and down the fairway, which was sort
Yes.
of the perfect shot. And I hit a nice little wedge in there again to about 12 foot and hold the putt for a 4 or 4.
Yeah,
And
that
I
was
think
important. I
I
think that
think
was the
that
that
was
was
a
the two
3 shot
points.
lead at that point in time.
Right. And then it might got chipped back by one on 15, on 14 or 15.
Mm.
Interestingly, actually, little aside, do you remember that 5 wood that I hit on that par five that you're talking about?
No,
Which was
no,
my
I have no
third shot.
recollection of that.
Yeah, you do, because you went, "Oh, golf shot." That on my shot scope track tracer later on when I finally managed to download it was
Mm.
218 meters. Andy Walker,
Wow.
that
Okay.
bit of a flyer out of the rough, possibly, but
Nice. Nice.
it's quite happy with that. Anyway, just an aside. It's not about me now; it's about you.
Mm.
So yourself and Hef, I think I'm pretty sure from memory, going on the 16th tee, it was a two-shot lead.
Yeah.
So 16th's a dogleg par four. There is a hazard down the right, which is not immediately obvious off the tee.
No, and
Um,
given the day before I had hit one of my little snappy
over to
turnover
the left.
hooks and was down the left-hand side of the fairway. So I didn't know what was down the right-hand side of the fairway.
That is true. So on 16, you pumped one, but slightly to the right hand side of the fairway.
And it just leaked a little bit. And I was
Just
actually
leaked.
pretty happy with the shot until it landed and you went, oh, there's a
You
big
went, oh,
embankment there and a
there's
hazard.
yeah, it goes hard right from there, Andy Walker. There's a hazard that could be trouble, and it was.
Yeah, big trouble.
Um, so that was the squeaking sound of the door opening for Hef
Mm,
at that
yeah.
point. So he then made the decision to step up onto the tee and also squirt one right into the hazard, but nowhere near as far down. Um, and I thought, why not? This looks like all sorts of fun, so I
Yeah.
might pull one into the hazard as well. So all three of us were down there.
Just to be
Anyway,
sociable.
yeah, and funnily enough, of the three of us, my ball was the only one with a shot out.
Mm,
Had a clear shot, managed to get out onto the green and make bogey for a couple of points. But unfortunately for the both of you, it was a dual wipe. And this was at the point in the round where the first three ball had finished their round and came back and caught
mm.
up with us. So finally, we
Yeah,
had
they
a
did.
gallery for the
We
closing
did.
three holes.
Mm,
The two leaders decide to both wipe the hole.
mm.
Um, so not a glorious effort, but at the end of
It
the day,
wasn't
no
my finest
no
moment
damage
over the
done.
weekend.
Yeah, but no damage done, which
No,
was which was good. So we then step up to the 17th. Now, the 17th is shortest par three on the course. It
Yep.
does go over a ravine. It's about, what is it? It's about 130 odd meters.
134 meters it was to the flag.
Yep. Over a ravine, which has a hazard in it. To the right-hand side of the green, it's kind of a bit of a kidney-shaped, long, narrowish green, dead over the back. There's nothing good over the back. There's nothing
Yeah,
good left. And
as
there's
you
not
found
much
out
good
on
right.
day one.
I found that out on day one, yeah, much to my disappointment. Flushed an 8-iron and flew the green and hit the downslope on the backside and was dead. Anyway, should have hit a 9-iron. I hit a 9-iron on day two and actually hit the green, but and then I was quite a long way short, so I should have hit an 8-iron. Who's to know? Anyway, so your tee shot, Andy Walker, what did you hit? 9-iron, was it?
No, I had a wedge. I hit
You hit a wedge?
9-iron day one, but then because I felt as though it was a little bit downwind, I decided to take a club less, and I saw where your ball landed on day one. I went, yeah, a couple of shot lead. I'm not gonna do a diamond here and
No, you don't
smoke
want
it
to go
over the
long.
back dead.
So you pushed it just a little right.
Yeah, it was maybe 3 meters right of the green.
Yeah.
I mean,
It wasn't a bad
while it
shot.
wasn't a great shot, I thought, look, it will finish in a reasonable spot. It looked like a fairly simple up and down from there. So in the air, yeah, I was like, okay, that's not great, but I think we're good.
But it's okay. Could make par. But the big tree to the right-hand side of the green was a big catcher's mitt.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was quite a loud, chunk of the tree that it hit. It was a massive thud that we heard from the tee.
Yeah, it was. And we all went, where'd that go?
Because no one saw it.
No one saw it. That's never good. I mean, we knew it wasn't on the green. So anyway, we didn't know where the ball went. We're standing on the tee, didn't know where the ball went. So at this point, once again, that door, that creaky sound of the door opening, the window of opportunity opening for Hef.
Yep.
Who stepped up and chunked one into the hazard.
Yep.
Which was not ideal. Now, there's no water in the hazard at this point. So he could play it from there.
And did find his ball.
Found his ball. Bit of an iffy lie. Attempted to play it from there. And then chunked it again and stayed in the hazard.
Yep.
To cut a long story short, wiped the hole. So he went wipe with the window of opportunity yawning open at him. So we get up to the green to find Andy Walker's ball. And we
nowhere to be found.
And
in fact, I did, after looking for maybe a minute, I walked back onto the green and had a look in the hole just to make sure it hadn't actually gone in the hole.
You've always got to do that. Because just imagine you spend the 3 minutes, you call it lost, you go back and hit another one.
Yeah.
And then someone goes, and it's in the hole. Are you playing a Titleist 3?
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be.
Yeah.
That would be frustrating. It wasn't
in the hole.
Wasn't in the hole. But we did find it. We did actually find it before you had to go back to the tee box. Mr. Mannix, I think it was, that found it.
Yeah, Mr. Mannix found it. Yep.
And it was dead.
Dead. Stone cold dead.
Yeah.
Couldn't actually get on the green. No way I had any shot. The best I could do, I think I had a 7-iron and just punched it out a few meters so I could chip onto the green.
Yep. Which was not ideal. So you unfortunately don't get a shot on 17 because it's short par 3. So that was wiped. So
chipped it on the green, missed the part. White.
Yeah, the two leaders in front of the gallery closing out went wipe over those two holes. At which point we asked the question of, how did you boys go today? And that's when Nitran Din said, well, I've actually had the best round of the weekend. I shot 37 points today. Perhaps I'm in the running.
Yeah.
And he started to get excited.
We had to do a count on the 18th tee.
We did a count. And unfortunately, on the 18th tee, I think he was one shot already off the pace. So, so he couldn't win. So it came down now on the 18th tee, Andy Walker staring down the brink of history of either being the defending champion, successful, no one had ever done it before, or Hef getting 2 shots on him on that hole. I think he would have needed.
But I did get a
for
shot on the hole
playoff.
though. So
You
Hef
did,
got two shots on the hole and I had a
did,
shot on the last. So I was relatively confident
yeah.
standing on the last tee.
It would have been a quality diamond for you to
Mm,
not win it from
yeah.
there. And Andy Walker, talk us through the final hole. What
Well, look,
happened?
I hit a reasonable tee shot, almost identical to the spot I was in on day one. So I knew what I had to do. This time the breeze was a little bit into us, so I hit a punch 7 iron, just landed short of the green. Hef had leaked his tee shot a little bit right, but it was still on the fairway. Had then cold topped his second shot, then hit his third shot just a little bit short of the green, chipped on. So I knew I had plenty to spare, and I got up and down for par for another 4 or 3 to
Mm.
finish on 35 points again.
Which gave you the win.
Mm,
So round of applause.
thank you.
That's
Thank you.
that's a
Thank you very
very cheap
much.
sound effect of an actual
Mm,
round of applause. First player in the
yeah.
history of the Missing Links Masters ever to go back to back. How
Mm.
does it feel?
Look, it feels good. It feels good. I feel as though I've proven Sandy Wedge wrong. I mean, I did give it to him a little bit during my speech as I gave myself the Masters jacket.
Mm.
Yeah, look, it was a good weekend. I'm pretty happy. I mean, key takeaways for me for the weekend is first time I've played two sub 80 rounds consecutively. When in previous Masters weekends, I've always
Yep,
had a good round and a bad round. So very,
it's
very
often the
happy it
way.
was 77-77. But look, it was a great weekend. Tough playing a 31 marker. I have to admit it. He
Yeah,
really hung in there, given the amount of swing thoughts he was given on the first tee. He
you're
really
welcome.
gave it a
You're
good
welcome.
gave it a good run down the stretch and came at me a couple of times when I got in front. So good to see Hef doing well, and yeah, he's a good man.
He's a good man, and I mean, your point is right. Usually, you'll see a 31 marker have some really good holes, have some really bad holes. I mean, they've
Yeah,
earned the handicap, and the thing is, he can hit a decent ball. So,
yeah.
that says that handicap is born more out of consistency than
Mm.
necessarily than ability.
But
Um,
if you look at the winners of the Missing Links Masters, given it is over 36 holes, generally speaking, the better and lower
yeah,
handicap
yeah,
golfers have
yeah,
won because of that consistency over the 2 days.
yeah. That's exactly right. But I think in this situation, Hef can take a lot out of that couple of days because I think he played some pretty good golf, and as you say, he didn't really go away. And it was really only the last couple of holes because when we were standing on 15, it was very much anybody's game.
Mm. Yeah.
And you had to get through a couple of holes where you didn't get a shot at all.
Mm.
Um, at least one when he got two. And then I think 17, he got one, you got none. So there were some advantages there for the taking. It could very easily have gone either way, but
Mm.
obviously it didn't. History shows that A Walker will be on the jacket 2 years in a row,
Mm.
which is something new. I
Yeah.
am a little disappointed that we still didn't get a playoff because I'm still waiting for the day that we get a playoff at the end of day two, but that didn't happen, and probably wasn't a bad thing because to be fair, by the end of the round it was that hot. I don't
Yeah.
think anybody wanted to get out
No.
and walk any more of the golf course than was absolutely necessary. So it was probably
Mm.
a good thing that you put us out of our misery at that point and we could all
Yeah.
go home.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, coming back to Hef, and there was the talk of at the clubhouse after day one that he had missed a number of short putts, and there
Mm,
was some concern about how he would perform. And he made a lot of really clutch putts
he
inside
did.
sort
He
of
did.
4 feet. I don't think he missed anything
No,
inside
he
four
putted
feet.
well. He
Mm.
putted well. It was good, and it was look, it was a lot of fun. So I think any final messages to our illustrious roving golf reporter, the great man Sandy Wedge, from you, Andy Walker. Now's your opportunity to really lay the boot in.
Oh, look, I don't want to repeat what I said during my victory speech. I think that's probably a little bit inappropriate
Yeah,
for
clean
the
rating.
podcast. But look, I think that given that what has been said and certainly the message that he sent you after episode 7, I mean, we talked about a full public apology, and I look,
We,
I
we
think
did.
that's warranted.
We did.
I think that's
We
warranted
did.
given, that he did lay the boot in during that review, and I found it very unwarranted. I was quite offended and insulted by some of the things he had to say.
You are
And
easily offended, though, in all fairness.
look, I don't know about offended, outraged maybe, but
I mean, that is the age that we live in. It's the era of outrage. So why
it
not
is,
get on board?
it is, it is. Look, yeah, I still, I'm going to stick to my guns and I'm going to say, yeah, full public apology
Yeah,
from Sandy Wedge.
we'll see how that pans out. I mean, I know in years gone by, it's never happened before. He's not one to go
Mm,
back on his word, and I think the message that he sent us earlier that I read out would indicate that he's not particularly keen to go back on his word.
mm,
He
mm.
calls it as he sees it, shoots from the hip, and sure, he got it horrendously and horribly wrong,
But just won't admit it.
and probably won't admit it. Yeah, and
Mm.
and I would say it's unlikely that he ever will.
Yeah. Yeah, look, and that comes back to credibility. I think, I think those people who
Yeah,
honor their credibility will admit when they've made a mistake and show a bit of humility, but just doesn't seem to be the case
it's not
right
his
here.
strong point. It's not his strong
No,
suit. I think
no.
it's not at all. But he, nevertheless, great man, fantastic golf reporter. Even
If you say
though,
so.
he is not necessarily very accurate with his predictions.
Mm.
But anyway,
So
that's fine.
so then what's your definition of a great golfing reporter then?
It's not many other golf reporters that cover our tournaments, so I think we'll take what we can get, and
Yeah. Okay.
potentially the quality of golf reporting that follows Missing Links Golf is commensurate to the quality of golf that gets played
Mm,
in the tournaments.
possibly, possibly.
It's fair to say.
Mm,
Anyway, we'll see what Sandy Wedge comes back with after that. I have no doubt that he'll have some words after your strong rebuke of his
mm.
review. Um, but Andy Walker, a fantastic weekend.
It
It
was.
really
It was a
was.
great weekend.
It's always a good way to kind of, I wouldn't say finish the year, but to get closer to finishing the year. We're now into December. Christmas is coming.
Yep.
We've got a couple of episodes left before the end of the year. This one obviously got put backwards by a couple of days. So the next episode will probably come at us fairly quickly, I think, by the end of
Yep.
this week.
Yep.
We've got some thoughts about what we might chat about. There's been, some conversations that we've had over time about the mental side of the game. And whilst neither of us claim to be experts in that field, we probably got a few questions we want to ask and maybe see if either of us can answer them, but also whether or not there might be anyone else out there that can jump on board and give us some answers as well. So I think we might dive into a little bit of the mental side of things in the next episode. How do you feel about
Yeah,
that?
yeah. No, I think it's a good thing. And I think I mentioned, might have been episode 1 or 2, that was never an area of my game that I was particularly focused on. Mine was always going to the range and hitting ball after ball. I think I heard that Greg Norman used to hit 300 balls a day on the range, so that's what I wanted to do. So I was always
Fair to
focused on.
say, the mental side of things was never his strength either.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. So look, yeah, the metal side is something that I've been a bit more focused on, or I should say a lot more focused on as we've got into this process and I've started to think about it a little bit more. I'm starting to listen to a few podcasts, not necessarily about golf, but just podcasts in general.
No,
I've
you're
been
listening to
picking and
golf
choosing.
podcasts, are you?
Yeah, listen to a
There's a
couple of
there's a good one actually that I think you might want to get on board with. It's called the Missing Links Golf Show.
Wow, really?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. I might have
yeah.
to jump on that.
It's highly regarded by Great Australian Pods podcast directory. I'm not sure if you will be.
Good one.
Thoroughly
Yeah.
recommend. Yeah, yeah, get on board.
Okay.
No, there is a huge amount of information out there. I have done a lot of reading on the topic as well. And interestingly, whilst it's not sports psychology, in my business studies, when I did a master's of business management, there was quite a lot of psychology in that, and a
Yeah,
lot of
right.
that is actually quite transferable. So there's a few
Mm,
little tidbits that I
yep.
wouldn't mind sharing, and just see
Mm,
if we can piece together the links that currently are missing between some business theory and sporting psychology.
Nice.
That
Nice.
could be an interesting conversation. And like I say, we'll put the call out if there's any, any psychology students, any golf specific sports psychology experts amongst our listeners, reach out. We'd love to have you on the show and ask a
Yeah.
few your questions, because I think it's kind of low hanging fruit in a lot of ways for golf improvement for a lot of amateur golfers who make so many mental errors. And I know I do. And I'm sure you do too.
Yeah.
And there's shots to be saved by tidying that
Yeah.
up.
And look, I know that one of the things that, or one of the certainly the weaknesses that I've got is that I have a tendency to think a lot around a golf
Mm,
court. Well, in general, in life in general, I'm always thinking about something. My mind's always going, and that's just because we lead busy lives. There's business, there's family, there's all sorts of stuff going on. But that's not the best way to be walking around a
no,
golf course trying to play your best
no.
golf. You need to be able to quieten your mind down and have specific things to focus on rather than just your mind racing and wandering.
Meditation, Andy Walker.
Mm. Well, it's interesting because I have thought about doing a little bit of meditation. Haven't actually got there yet, but yeah, I
Mm.
certainly think it's something that may explore at some stage.
Struggling with it.
You are.
Mm.
What about your journaling? How's the journaling going?
It's fallen off a little bit, if I can be completely honest.
Yeah, right.
I need to bring that back. Because I actually think there's value in that. I do think there's
Mm,
value in that in the reflection process, but and in particular if you're doing it from a positive perspective rather than doing
yep.
it, right. It's really easy, and I know I was doing it in Mudgee. It's really easy to focus on the negatives
Mm,
and the
yeah.
things that you don't do well. It's really hard to, kind of celebrate the good shots and pat yourself on the
Mm,
back for the good shots. And the thing is, like, good shots, understanding what is a good shot at our level of golf, and at everyone's level of golf, because it's different depending on what your standard is.
yeah.
A good shot for, take me as a 10 handicapper. If I stand on the tee, I should be happy with a drive that is in play.
Yep.
That's not costing me a shot for either chipping out from the trees or
Mm,
out of bounds, for example, but not getting upset if I, don't get the ball flight that I want and it's in the rough or something. But, like if it's down over, say 220 meters in the rough, but I've got a clear line for a second shot, that's a good shot.
yeah. Mm,
Even though traditionally you go, well, it's a poor drive, but it's
mm,
actually a good shot. So
yeah.
it's maybe, and that's where I think getting away from fairways and regulation, but looking at what, drives that don't immediately cost you a shot. It's
Mm.
a, you might call it a good enough drive or something along those lines. But
Well, it's interesting because I went out, as you know, to and watched the Australian Open golf on the weekend.
yes,
Drove down to Sydney to the Australian and watched the Aussie Open, and I followed Adam Scott and Mark Leishman around, and I got that wonderful photo that I noticed
that
you
was so
posted
good,
on
so
Facebook.
good, so good.
That was highly intentional.
Yeah,
That I waited at the 16th tee and just had the camera going as they all walked off, and that's just a screenshot of that moment that Adam Scott walked past. And quite interestingly, he stood on the 16th tee and hit a snap hook.
yeah, right.
And that was the message that I sent to you.
And
Look,
he turned around and he
it's
went,
almost
"That one's for you, Andy Walker."
it's almost like watching myself play.
Yeah,
So they can do it. That
yeah,
they
and they
can
do, and they
the
do.
best hit those sorts of shots. So if
Yeah,
pros that practice, 6, 8 hours a day or more, if
yeah,
they still hit snap hooks, then us mere mortals,
yeah,
we will do the same thing
yeah,
more often.
we absolutely will, and that's why I say that, you know, we we'll talk about this in the next episode, but it's that expectations. Like, what is a reasonable expectation
Mm,
when you're standing over a shot? And the stat that always blows me away is the pros putting are 50% from 8 foot.
yeah.
When you watch the golf on the TV, because you're seeing the highlights package of the
Yeah.
best players in the world playing the best in that tournament,
Yeah.
it looks like they make everything they look at,
Yeah.
but they don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas
And
we'll
that's the thing.
stand
It
over it.
is. It's a
Yeah.
highlights reel of the leaders of that
Of the best
tournament
of the
playing
best.
their
Yeah.
best golf.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that sets up those unrealistic expectations. And I also, you know, you listen to the commentary and the way that the commentators will frame things. I was watching the Hero Championship earlier, the final
Yep.
round, and Tiger had missed a par three, missed a green, short sighted, well below the level of the green. Difficult chip coming against the grain in Bermuda grass, back up with not a lot of green to work with. So he's tried to bounce it into the hill to kill it before it gets onto the green. It almost did, but then it just didn't quite take the hop that he expected, and it sat on the fringe.
Yep.
And the commentator's remark was, "Oh, in his heyday, Tiger never would have made a mistake like that."
Yeah.
And the funny
Yeah.
thing is, I beg to differ. I reckon
Yeah.
you could find probably 30 examples of him doing exactly that in his heyday, because
Yeah.
golf's hard
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not everything
Yeah.
goes exactly where you expect it to.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and they all did it. Jack Nicklaus, Gary Player, Arnold Palmer, they all did, but certainly Nicklaus and Tiger Woods coming down the stretch, that's when they turned on their, well, not just their A game, their A plus game, and yeah, that's where they didn't make too many mistakes.
Yeah, that's right. And other people did, and
Yeah,
so they ended up winning.
yeah, but
Um,
day to day, week to week, they made plenty of mistakes, no
yeah,
question.
yeah, because it's golf. It's a tough game. So anyway, I guess that's a little bit of a snapshot of the next episode, where we might delve into some of those concepts in a
Mm.
bit more depth. But look, Andy Walker, anything else that you would like to share off the back of episode 8? Episode 8, we're wrapping them
Yeah,
up.
episode 8. No, look, I think just kudos to Mudgee and Mudgee Golf Club. I think
Absolutely.
what they presented, given the conditions, was phenomenal. I'd love to go back out to Mudgee. Maybe next year we might sort of venture out to Mudgee again for the Missing Links Masters. But yeah, I think it's a great place. Really enjoyed the weekend. Really enjoyed the company of the guys out there. The hospitality was great. The 2 restaurants we went to were phenomenal. Yeah, with the Airbnbs we stayed at were great. So yeah, I had a really quality weekend away.
I would wholeheartedly agree with all of that. A big thanks to all of our playing partners that came along that made the Missing Links Masters such a fun weekend. A big thanks to everyone at Mudgee Golf Club, the best club west of the Blue Mountains, or the best course, sorry, west of the Blue Mountains. We had a great time. We'll definitely be back. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for episode 8 of the Missing Links Golf Show. If you haven't already, please get on the Facebook page, click follow, like it, put a comment on, anything that you feel that you want to do, interact, leave a few questions, give us a review, anything that you'd like us to cover in future episodes. And also click that auto download button on your podcasting service of choice. Drop us a review. Again, I think I'm pretty sure, Andy Walker, correct me if I'm wrong, but all reviews have to be 5 stars. Is that a new rule?
Yeah, no question.
Pretty
Certainly
sure.
for our podcast.
Yeah, I think that's right. So yes, let's help make this podcast, the Missing Links Golf Show, #1 in Australia. We're well on the way, according to Great Australian Pods podcast directory. Love your work as well. And that's it for this week. It's been a lot of fun. We'll talk again soon. But Andy Walker, let's rock out with a bit of Electric Rock King.
See you soon.
Sounds good.